Welcome to the Life Science Success Podcast. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Don. I'm a consultant in life sciences, and I help companies manage complexity and really focus in on the strategy, people, process, and technology. We have a weekly series called Thoughts at Scale, and you could find the link for Thoughts at Scale at the bottom of the existing page, but it's thescalingmethod.com/thoughts at scale. The topic for this week actually is change management. So for many organizations, as you grow and you get more and more people, this sort of resistance to change becomes a natural part of something that every organization starts to experience. And so we've got a whole host of topics that we're going to cover in the Thoughts at Scale session, as well as providing some tools as well that people can use for managing change. And so with that, let me bring in my guest. In this episode of Life Science Success, my guest is Sucheshna Patil. She's the CEO and founder of Mobility Z Health, a health-focused biotech engineer, innovator, researcher, building health technology products. And so with that, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Don. I appreciate this opportunity. And hello, everyone.
Yeah, thanks a lot for being on. I really appreciate it. And I looked at your background and just thought that it might be a good place to start if you could just share a little bit with everybody in terms of what it is that sort of brought you from biotech engineer to now working at Mobility Z Health.
Yeah, absolutely. So I get that question a lot. It's a long journey from being a biotech engineer, figuring it out where I wanted to focus on my career early on, and going from there, doing engineering and then masters, further working in healthcare sector because that's the most prominent sector for biotech engineers to work on more research and human health and understanding more from the perspective of life sciences, that how we can develop new methodologies and research in a way that we can find more solutions utilizing the technologies. So I had my own share of experiences working in healthcare sector in Methodist, MD Anderson, and Baylor College of Medicine, where I realized that I do have a strong background of science, and my superpower was research because it was very. It came naturally to me where I had this love for healthcare, my father being a doctor, and then coming from the expertise of a biotech researcher to more focus on the health diseases of humans and how we can solve them and intersect that with the current problems that are going on with people. So that's how I came into thinking more about brainstorming, soul searching, meditating, at what would be my next move after working into research. And I realized that startup is my next move because the love for innovation, having the background as an engineer and a researcher, and working efficiently with the finding solutions on technology and health integrated, realized I could build some more digital health solutions. I worked in three different startups before, which gave me more insights on how we can think strategically to develop these solutions. And that's how was Humans in Space Inc. was born, which is also known as Mobility Z Health.
So can you tell me a little bit more about what Mobility Z Health is and what are the products that that you provide?
Yes, so we are very focused as a startup, as a startup should be, and niching down the problem of orthopedic care. Currently, we see that in orthopedics, as a patient myself of musculoskeletal injury, I realized that it took me 5 months to get the initial appointment with the orthopedic surgeon. In between, I did multiple telehealth visits, and I know a lot of you may resonate with the issue of delay in care. But that was a little odd for me being a biotech researcher. I have to do pipetting every day, and I realized that I couldn't do it anymore one day. And then I started working on a solution that might help for early care, and we can do it with the software. So this way, the patient do not have to wait for 5 months to get the initial appointment, and they would understand that what's wrong with them, how either they should go for a surgeon or a physiotherapist or maybe a general practitioner or a non-surgical orthopedic specialist. So this kind of knowledge we need to provide to people along with the technology so they can get care sooner. And that's the focus of Mobility Z Health. We want to make sure that there are no backlogs on the orthopedic side. Currently, there are less number of orthopedic physicians and more amount of patients. There are 124 million patients of musculoskeletal injuries every year. So how we can manage these patients efficiently and there is less backlog on the orthopedic side is what we are niching down, and that's what is our focus.
And then how does that relate then to humans in space? Because I know that we talked about this before we got started, that more or less, your focus right now is on Mobility Z Health, but at the same time, you have humans in space as well.
Yeah. So it's the company is like we do transaction as humans in space, Inc., but we realized that hey, it would be more resonating if we have a health side of the name because the product is so much for orthopedic doctors and patients. So we changed and we transitioned into Mobility Z Health. So both are the same companies, just with two names, but they are now like doing business as Mobility Z Health.
I think it's an important thing to highlight because I think there are a lot of entrepreneurs, and the reason why I sort of wanted to draw this out of you is that I think that there are a lot of entrepreneurs that start with a key idea in their mind in terms of what their company should be named or whatever. And then we all sort of get down the path a little bit, right? And then all of a sudden look back and go, it's kind of hard to associate with this thing all the time. And it might actually attract more people if we were named this. And I just think it's a really important, thing to talk about because I think a lot of entrepreneurs given the chance to rename their company or whatever, and you're not the first one that I've talked to that has done this. More closely, even personally to me, is Music Beats Cancer as a charity, and they started out as a completely different company name as well, and similar sort of story. They, as they progressed along, they decided, hey, look, this seems to resonate with a lot more people than our current name.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like there is a branding is a huge aspect of it because you are producing value into the world. You are on the go, changing the world. You want to make sure that people understand you better, people resonate with you better, and I mean, like for example, Apple, right? If we see, I mean, the name is name, but I would say that Mobility Z Health more resonated in terms of having being a health tech company and a healthcare product. And we want to make sure that we are right on the messaging and also like letting people know that we are talking about the mobility of musculoskeletal injury so people can move properly, people can work properly. So there are different markets we are targeting, which is like hospital sector, where we are trying to make sure the orthopedics surgeons could get a better screening module with our software, a better analysis module for orthopedic surgeons, and even non-surgical orthopedic doctors can triage the patients, they can analyze the patient virtually. Because currently they are doing only in-person diagnosis, and we are creating this huge value proposition where we are stating that diagnosis can happen virtually. A diagnosis could be you can screen musculoskeletal injuries virtually, and that's where our software is working on to niche it down where care can be provided anywhere, no matter you are on a holiday on a mountain or you are in a desert or you're in space as an astronaut. Wherever you are, your injuries can be detected, they can be screened, and you will be able to know that what's wrong with your particular repetitive motion injury.
So important to understand that too in terms of your products. What led you to want to specialize, in this aspect? Was it just the injury that you had in pipetting that led you to this, or was there something more in your background that made you say, "Hey, look, this is something that I really want to, um, essentially build my career around"?
Yes, absolutely. So when you reach at a point where you want to make sure your purpose and your passion and what you like to do matches all together. So, along with being a biotech researcher doing my master's on the side, I was also working with a company and like volunteering to write proposals for NASA. And kind of, so as research being my superpower, I was figuring it out how we can create more kind of, break those boundaries and create futuristic health tech research that would help NASA and the astronaut health as well. So when I had my injury myself, at the same time, I was selected for the program, which was citizen science program by Possum Institute. It's like Institute of International Astronautical Sciences, where they kind of train you towards on higher altitudes, upper hemisphere. I wore a spacesuit and kind of studied more on the how an astronaut would feel, how the mobility would be. And at the same time, I had this injury, and I realized that it was so difficult when I was wearing those astronaut gloves to move. And how would this particular astronaut wearing such a heavy suit would be working on ISS, doing spacewalk, and would not get MSK injury because they would be moving their hands in a particular direction repetitively. So now here I'm focusing on hand and wrist injury because I had the same injury and I was wearing these gloves and I couldn't move, and it was hurting when I was doing any task with those gloves. So everything connected, I would say, as a researcher, as an engineer, as an aspiring astronaut. So I did certain missions as well, like analog astronaut missions, where we were figuring it out. Like you simulate the environment and see that if the astronaut was on Mars, how would this feel? And what would be the future precautions wearing this kind of spacesuit? So these are some citizen science studies that I did as well, and from there came the innovation, and there was a birth of Mobility Z Health and Humans in Space Inc., where I realized the solution that we are providing for 124 million people on Earth could be the same solution could be utilized for astronauts. But in space, there are just 600 approximately astronauts that you will be providing solution for. Wouldn't it be better to provide this solution for 124 million people down on Earth as well? And that's how I changed the trajectory and started working on a legit solution, which would not only impact space but also would impact Earth.
And how does the Mobility Z integrate more cutting edge research, into what it is that you're working on into your product development?
So the cutting edge research would be we will not only be analyzing and screening injuries, but the future is diagnosis. How you can virtually diagnose a musculoskeletal injuries. That's the main aspect we are working on. In future, if, through your devices, you can scan your injury and then know that what's wrong with you. Currently, it's only in person, and only orthopedic doctors could like touch, do different tests, and tell you, okay, this is the diagnosis. But we want to revolutionize that, and we want to make sure that, hey, in future, our software will be able to diagnose this MSK injuries.
Yeah, and I mean, I would imagine there's a difference that you have to sort of design for as well as you're thinking about this. If you want it to be used on Earth, and then you're also wanting it to potentially also be used in space, what sort of devices do they have? Because I'm assuming they don't have my iPhone, uh, in ISS or take it to space.
They do use Apple products, so but we are not sticking to any particular device. We are keeping it to software level. We have our AI ML models. We have our own algorithms that we have trained by creating our own data. because AI is like what you feed in comes out. So I wanted to make sure that our AI is not biased on color or the kind of size of the hand or things like that. So we made sure that our models are pretty keen on that, and the software would work with any sort of devices which has a camera and can adopt the software.
And what kind of challenges do you have to deal with in terms of, working on inside of digital health on a musculoskeletal injury area? So what do you have to think about whenever you're designing things?
I usually think from the patient perspective, being patient myself, and we do have doctors on board in our team, and I ask them to think from the clinician perspective, because this product would be used by people who have musculoskeletal injuries like me, and it will be used by physicians who will be analyzing these injuries. So I'm whenever I make a product, I try to think from their perspective and how easy I can make it, because I myself, as a user, have used multiple products, and I realize some products I feel like very complicated. Not from the engineering perspective, but from a layman perspective. So I want to make sure that the products that we develop at Mobility Z could be used by even the older generation, and there shouldn't be any like, what is this, and we can't use it. It's too difficult, or it's not user friendly. So perspective is user perspective, and user experience is something that we are very keenly focused on, and we make sure that it's adopted in our products.
And what part of development are you in right now? I mean, where is this something that we can look to find soon in the App Store, or is it something that you could see privately being released?
Yeah, so currently we are extremely scrappy as a startup. We do have a coded product, but we are focusing on the launch in next 3 months. And like, but we have, you might say we are currently in the alpha phase of the product development and going to beta in January.
Okay, very good. Yeah, it doesn't seem like it's all that far away then, where we could where we might be able to see it. And in terms of where people would find it, will it eventually be in the
Mhm.
App Store, or is it something that would be privately put on devices, only for special use?
And while talking about products, I would like to say that we are onboarding people with musculoskeletal injuries for our research study, and also physicians. So if you're interested, anybody who is listening, please connect us on mobilityzhealth.com. And we can take your credential, and obviously there are advantages to participate in a research study. Sorry, so yeah, I missed the question again. Can you repeat that, please?
I just was asking if we will eventually see this in like the Apple
Yeah.
store, or will it be something that's privately given to people?
So since this is a healthcare product, we have to make sure that we are FDA regulated before we launch any consumer facing product. But before that, we will be going B2B for the clinical observational research study, which is ongoing right now. And it is pretty, the alpha product is pretty private. So as patient like people with musculoskeletal injuries or doctors who wants to use our product right now and try it, we're gonna screen them properly, have the list, and then they will be able to use it for sure with the right context. The research study focusing on right kind of musculoskeletal injuries and people. But I would say that if you're talking about the consumer facing product, the beta would be the one that in January that we will launch, would be something that you can use.
Very nice. And then in terms of, I just think about the growing need for digital products overall, and I feel like there is an ecosystem that's out there today, but it's also something that healthcare is pretty slow to adopt. And so, how are you looking at this from the Mobility Z health standpoint? In terms of just making sure that both from a on Earth standpoint as well as terrestrial space environments, that that the technology is adopted as well.
Yeah, I mean, we have to go through different kind of research studies and case studies before we're gonna be like. So healthcare works in a different way, as you know, than any other kind of product. So we definitely will need to prove our particular like studies that we will be launching from the patient side, from the physician side. And there is another huge market, which is injury claims. So 167 billion in injury claims are paid by employers. How you can reduce it for employers would be using our product, because our product will screen your employees in a way that only the people with MSK injuries could be detected earlier, and that way the employer doesn't have to pay 20,000 for a surgery which might cost today 2,000. So that detection is very important. Currently the employees go to the workers comp when it's like the last stage, when it's like, okay, I cannot move my hand anymore, I need the surgery. But if you can detect like 3 steps earlier, when it's just the onset or early stage of MSK, then at that point, the surgery or the treatment might cost less, and also the patient can recover faster and better. Is this whole MSK injury area can lead a person into disability. So I lost 25% functioning of my hand due to the delay in care, and I want to make sure that these 124 million people who are detected every year do not go into disability. But hence, this kind of product would provide early care and take care of them sooner.
Hmm. So I want to focus a little bit on you towards the end of the interview here, reflecting a little bit on your journey. What's the greatest piece of leadership advice that you've received?
I would say, as a female founder, the greatest advice was being okay with the discomfort. So, since we are speeding up now, I have realized every day is a new challenge. Every day is a new discomfort that I'm fighting. But somehow, because I chose this path myself, I find strength, and I'm a better person the next day because I overcame the challenge that was yesterday. So, I would say, if you want to grow as a person, you have to be okay with the discomfort and just grow out of it, be more stronger.
So it's such important advice. What inspires you?
I would say that when you take the responsibility and have the drive and the passion and the purpose all coming together, there is no need for inspiration. You just walk the path. So I get this question a lot, like what inspires you? And I just I can't stop working. Sometimes, like, even you're sleeping, the thoughts are going on. And I realize that because that those three things are met, like drive and passion and purpose, it just becomes easier and like more fulfilling and satisfying.
Yeah. So important. And it's kind of funny because I feel like, um, it's one of those things where whenever you enjoy what it is that you do, it is hard to stop at the end of the day. Even
Yeah,
even whenever your brain does need a little bit of a break. What
yeah,
concerns you?
absolutely. And
Oh, go ahead, please.
yeah, just last point I wanted to say was the passion for space, and really inspires me a lot, like from inside, because since like I was 12, I always had, such a huge passion for space, wanted to see the moon and like go in outer space. And uh, even though like right now I'm not in outer space, but developing health technologies for outer space is something that really inspires me.
Very good. What concerns you?
I would say I did not get concerned, but much. But on the product side, I just feel like sometimes I want to make sure that whatever I produce is used for the good and for people, good health. And if something goes sideways, that should be taken care of immediately. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. Last question. What excites you?
Space excites me. So space health tech extremely excites me. Yeah, yeah. So yeah. Firstly, I would say that this company is like a baby when you start as a startup, and the technology, and seeing yourself as a creator of something new and developing the tech by yourself, using your knowledge and a perspective. That's something it's itself exciting, and everybody I would hope that everybody gets to experience that.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I feel like there are so many people in the world that don't get to experience it, but at the same time there are those key individuals that you sort of find their passion and know that it's either creating companies or building something that they're passionate about, and it definitely sounds like you've done that with Mobility Z Health. And so, Sucheshna, thank you for being on the Life Science Success Podcast. Thanks a lot for being here and sharing with us everything that you're currently working on.
Thank you for having me, Dom.
Thanks a
Appreciate
lot.
it.
All right.